Today on Chris Dyer's Creative Friends.
Allowing mistakes to happen and fixing it rather than just the convenience of being like, oh no, that's wrong, and just like taking it away. The mistakes are like, part of what the process is, and sometimes they're good mistakes. Everyone has their individual way of how they approach their art, but being from a graffiti background, there are these like unwritten rules and ethics. You either choose to be pissed off about it and have this negative energy and connotation with it all, that you end up hating all street artists and blah blah blah. You can just, find the person and respectively teach them about the culture and the rules, and education is what's needed rather than conflict. It just wows, and you can just see the inspiration just taking over the community, that it just like, wow, I didn't even know this was a thing. It opens conversation, and they're just like, you get a lot of kids like, how can I do that? It's like, well, here's a pen, here's some paper, draw. That's how you start. This is the basics of it, like
you can do this too.
You can do it too. Everyone can do it.
Yeah, back in the day I had a lot more drawings because my graphics was all hand done and you scan it. Now it's all the pad, so that's kind of gone, which is too bad because it was always nice to have those black and white drawings.
You know what's funny? Like, I've been drawing on my iPad for so long now, and the other day I was like, oh, I'm going to do a little sketch on paper, and I started drawing the sketch. And then I'm double tapping the paper to undo the draw line.
Or do you ever like pinch it and trying to expand
that too.
it?
I'm like, I'm like, fuck, what am I doing?
Do you think the iPad is making us get worse as artists? Or
I do think so, yeah.
Yeah?
I mean, not worse, but
there's this urgency to be precise. If there's forgiveness.
It's just more convenience, and it's losing the analog part of being an artist, like the true roots of it, pen to paper, the raw aspect of it, it's getting lost for sure. So now I realize that, like, a few weeks ago, I'm like, oh damn, I'll focus on drawing more on paper for that reason, because I don't want to lose that,
Right. I always like doing so much iPad for the last 5 years. I always wonder, like, oh, if I went back to paper and just did like ink line work, will I hit it correct on one go without being able to double tap it back?
Yeah, the whole kind of element of drawing and allowing mistakes to happen and fixing it rather than just the convenience of being like, oh no, that's wrong, and just like taking it away.
Yeah.
The mistakes are like, part of what the process is, and sometimes they're good mistakes. You'll do something and be like, oh, I didn't mean to do that, but actually that looks pretty cool, like.
Or to try something over and over again. Like, say you want a line to go like this, and you do it, and it's like, that went too far. Let's take it back. And you do it like 4 or 5 times till you get it just right, and be like, that's the perfect line. But hopefully that's also teaching our brains that's the perfect line, and then we can do it on the first go with the ink. Yeah.
I mean, I correlate the drawings I do on the iPad, I correlate more to like I never really complete a drawing on my iPad. They're always just sketches that I do for a mural, just so that I can kind of get the idea, and then I can, do the doodle grid and trace it up on the wall, and boom, it's easy, rather than just going from the sketch, which I can do, but it's more time consuming. And sometimes, especially when we're traveling a lot and we only have a few days in a place, it's like you go for the fastest way possible to throw up your artwork,
Right.
That's why people use projectors. I remember back in the day when I was a graffiti artist, we would all hate on people using projectors. It was such a no-no. It was like, why are you doing that? But then now it's like, for when it's your work and you're pushed for time, it's a no-brainer,
Yeah, you just want to save yourself the time to make a better job on the actual painting part. And you get everything precisely too.
Yeah. And especially when it's your own design, I still kind of have a bit of a gripe against people who are just like ripping an image off of Google and projecting it on the wall and chasing it. And maybe that's what the client wants, so it's okay. But then when you're basing your whole like art career off of these kind of portraits that people do, and the technical ability is still there. I don't knock it. I don't think, but it's just not for me. I don't agree with that.
Right. So do you believe in rules in art or ethics, or you think it's an individual thing?
Everyone has their individual way of how they approach their art, but being from a graffiti background, there are these like unwritten rules and ethics, you know, that people do and do not. If you're going to go over someone, it needs to be better than the one that you're going over. And there's like this whole beef element and street culture, and it's all part of the hip hop culture and stuff. So I feel like those kind of rules and ethics are very important in the street art world that we live in today. And a lot of people don't know about that history that, you know, that is there for a reason. That's why they're able to do what they do today. So people should just be aware of it. I wouldn't stand by it by any means. People move on, you know, life moves on.
The times change.
Times change. We have to move with it, you know. We didn't have social media back then or anything like that. So everyone's just learning from what they see in magazines or on the street or whatever. Now anybody can watch a YouTube video and start painting a mural, and it's great. I think more people should be painting murals, you know, but learn about the history that made it possible to up to this point, you know.
Right, be cultured in whatever culture you're about to throw yourself in.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, and you know, I see people getting annoyed when like some graffiti artist like tags over their mural because they painted this spot, but that spot's been painted for 30 years before they painted the mural. And they just don't know about it. It's like, I understand you're upset. I would be upset too, you know. It's just about knowing about the culture, you know.
Right, totally. Like, for sure, we all don't like our murals to get gone over. Me neither, but we also gotta know where we're painting.
Yeah.
I always try to check in general with artists I paint over, may it be street art or graffiti, if I know how to contact them, of course, because many times you don't know where to hit him up. But if I can hit him up, I'll be like, hey, I'm about to go over your piece, or I just went over your piece. No disrespect. It's just, this is the opportunity that came about, and, you know, hopefully there's no bad feelings.
Yeah, it's funny. I was talking about that with some people in New York. Because obviously the graffiti culture is pretty much born from New York. And there's a lot of that happens. And the first time I painted there was a wall that we'd been given at the Bushwick Collective. And on the wall, there was an old Nimek piece. And I know Nimek from painting trains all around Europe. Like, he's a super famous graph writer. A lot of respect for him. And I'm like, I'm not painting over that. Like, and he's like, oh, but we have permission from the owner, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, still, I'm not painting over that. Like, if you want us to paint over it, tell the owner to buff the wall white, and then we can paint it. But me personally, I'm not painting over that. You know? Like, but there's many people that would. They would have no idea. They would just see it as, oh, it's just some shitty graffiti, you know? Like,
right. And you wouldn't hit him up if you could to be like, hey, there's this opportunity for me to paint this wall?
I would have done, but I have too much respect for him. I would have rather have left it.
Yeah.
You know, even if he gave me, I could have, we ended up painting the space next to him, so it wasn't a problem. If it was the only spot that I could get, maybe I would have hit him up and stuff, but there wasn't a need to, you know.
Was that those recent murals you painted in New York?
No, this was back in 2022, I think, something like that. It's the first time I went to New York. Yeah.
Okay, nice. One second. Paulina, are we rolling?
We're rolling.
Okay. Oh, yeah? Just mid-conversation.
Amazing, amazing. Well, it's always good to, like, be warmed up and actually already be talking.
Salud.
Salud, Jake. Thank you so much for having me over. Before we start talking, I just want to plug our brand new sponsor, Yak Snacks from the Smith, blah, blah, blah. Yak Fish brand. They're sponsoring our show. They're magic mushroom gummies. Each one of these gummies is 1/4 gram. I'm gonna eat one right now. I don't know if you want to partake.
Sure.
Yeah, help yourself. And, you know, stay tuned. Maybe they will affect us, maybe not. You're gonna have to see. Either way, I always appreciate psilocybin mushrooms in my spiritual soul development as a human. Microdoses are so great because they allow you that little dip in a little bit vibrationally without being like super overtaken by the medicine. Do you like taking mushrooms every now and then, Klone?
Yeah, man, I've partaken before. I feel like there's definitely an element of awakening your third eye when it comes to that. In the past, it's definitely helped in my creative process.
As Paulina falls back.
I am completely sober right now. Maybe I should have some mushrooms.
But these are very clean, grown by nice people. I feel like with mushrooms, I think with all food really, and herb, but when it's grown by people with good vibrations, then that gets in the medicine.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah. I never thought of it that way. I mean, I'm from England. We have every year we have mushroom season. So between beginning of September till the first frost, which is usually end of October, we have liberty caps that grow absolutely everywhere, and you just go out and pick your own, thousands and thousands of them, and we would do that every year.
From cow poo?
Not necessarily, no. Actually, the best spots that we would go picking were on like cricket pitches and bowling greens, like places with really short grass, which is really weird. You'd think it'd be like farmers' fields and stuff like that. And I don't know if it was because the grass was so short that it was easier to see them or what, but yeah, we got them in abundance on cricket fields, and then we'd get kicked off by the owners eventually and stuff. But yeah, because it's not illegal to pick magic mushrooms in England, but it's illegal to prepare them. So as soon as you dry them out, then it becomes an illegal substance.
Yeah, interesting. What do you like about eating psychedelic mushrooms? Is there any message in particular that comes through, or is it just a vibrational feeling thing?
I feel like it's helped me deal with addiction in the past, and it's also helped me in my creative process a lot. There's been a lot of times where I've been on psychedelics and really kind of thought about really wild ideas when it comes to my artwork, and then that transcends once you come around and stuff, and I always feel like I've been reborn after, like a whole new sense of purpose and life every time.
It squeegees your third eye.
Yeah. And those are actually kind of dangerous because they taste like sweeties.
Oh, dude. Yeah, no.
So I could eat a whole bag of those without realizing.
Right, got to keep them away from kids. Yeah. No, it tastes good. It's good medicine. Every time I've taken it, I end up in a good mood. I'm sure at the end of this interview, I'm going to have a big old smile as we keep on dipping into your world. Our other great sponsor, not really, I wish. We always drink Modelo, and it's a classic. For us, Somos Artistas crew, because we met in...
I mean, technically they are a sponsor, In Basel, they sponsor us by the crate load.
Right, the Somos Artistas crew. So in a way, indirectly, perhaps we are a sponsor. But tell me a little bit about meeting in Miami, the Somos Artistas, Hive, what is it, Basel House? Every year the name changes, but tell me a little bit about those jams that we do in Basel every year almost.
I mean, that all kind of started out for me just through knowing Pez, because I used to run a festival in Akumal in Mexico, and Pez came to my festival. We became great friends, shared a lot of Modelos together. And the first year that I went to Basel to paint, he found me a wall. He was really nice. Like, I didn't know where I was going to paint or anything, and he hooked me up. And then the next year they do the container park, and he brought me in there, and that's when I met you, and we painted next to each other, and we had a great time. And, that's when kind of Somos Artistas started to form, and it's basically not really a graffiti crew or an art crew. It's more of just a friendship crew of people that just like to network and party and paint and, just have a good time, man. And I really liked that about the crew, and made some really solid friendships through it, yourself included.
Yeah, totally. I always enjoy those jams. Basel is crazy for me, so I'm there, I paint real hard, and I try to drink some beers with the people, but then I'm jumping all over the place, and I perhaps don't get to connect with the whole crew as much as if I was just there getting drunk all night long with them.
I mean, it's like productive in its own way, but especially if you're there on a business kind of aspect, then I can see how that would hinder the process a little bit.
Totally, but that's like a whole group of artistas or artists from Latin America or Spain, a lot of Barcelona people. But you're British and you're like a gringo, so you're like the gringo oddity in the crew, but you know Spanish.
Yeah, well, I lived in Mexico for 7 years, so I kind of picked up a Mexican slang. I wouldn't say I'm fluent by any means, but especially once I've been around Spanish-speaking people for a while, it definitely feels very fluent.
Yeah.
So yeah, it kind of stands out, especially when I actually go to Spain and then they notice that I'm a British guy, but I'm speaking Mexican Spanish, and the Spanish people are looking at me like, this is weird.
Yeah, well, some shout outs to Somos Artistas crew.
Vamos.
Vamos, vamos, vamos. Pes, Slomo. Who else is in there? Flop.
Fez.
Trasher.
JK's.
Who's the guy who does the that like sleepy dog chopped up?
Cram, obviously. Cram. Yeah. There's a whole bunch of people, you know. Even people that don't paint are part of the crew, you know. Like we all bring a different aspect to the team.
First year I painted with them. Ledania was painting.
Chicadania as well.
Yeah, Golden was painting. So basically all the Latinos I love that vibe because it's like open container painting in middle of Wynwood.
Yeah.
And there's lots of reggaeton and dance music and everyone's getting drunk around and it's such a vibe.
Miami's like a different country, man. I wouldn't even say it's part of the US. It's its own vibe, that's for sure.
Yeah, but now you're here in St. Pete. You've lived in many places. Now you're here in St. Pete. We're at your new studio. Tell me a little about your move here.
My move to St. Pete. After I met my now wife, Tequina, she did that little piece up there. In Mexico, she's from Denver, so we moved to Denver back in 2000. It was like just after COVID, so like 2001.
2021.
2021. Yeah. Sorry. We moved to Denver, and then I started linking up with the art scene there.
Were you there the whole 2022?
I mean, it was in and out. I didn't have my any kind of permanent visa to stay there, so I was only on a tourist visa, so I could only spend 6 months out of the year there. Okay. So between going back, traveling around, I traveled a lot anyway, going back to England. But we had a base in Denver. Yeah.
Because that was the year I was there. Basically, I arrived October 2021 and stayed a whole year. So mostly 2022 I was there.
Yeah. My first mural there was what's it called? Rock Drill, you know, where Linz and Lamb had their like workshop there. Right. And I met Linz and Lamb, and he hooked me up this huge wall with a lift, and he gave me paint and everything. I was like, wow, this is cool. It's like one of the first biggest murals I painted, you know, and the first time I'd ever used a lift, because I painted big murals in Mexico, but they were always on scaffolding and stuff. So I was really appreciative of him giving me that opportunity, and we became great friends. Yeah.
I love him. Shout outs Linz and Lamb, who also were one of the only people who hooked me up with walls in the whole year I was in Denver. Yeah. It was kind of heartbreaking for me because I've been going to Denver for a long time. Like in 2013, I would be in the Rhino and all the walls wanted to be painted. And I'd paint what I could and paint a gigantic wall and it'd be amazing. Now, like over 10 years later, you can't get a wall unless you're down with the right people.
It did kind of seem kind of cliquey in Denver, and not to like, you know, bash on any artists, because all the artists that are painting there
everybody just wants to get a wall.
Everybody's just doing their own thing, but it was just kind of a bit, I think there was for a scene like Rhino to be how it is, it seemed like there was a lot of red tape, you know, like hard to get walls, hard to just go out and paint unless you know the right people and blah, blah, blah. And luckily I knew the right people, so it was fun, you know? Yeah.
Well, that's great that Linz and Lamb hooked you up.
I mean, they're a pillar of the community in Denver, you know? Like,
They've run Crush Walls.
They started Crush Walls.
They've also been on this show, so make sure to check out.
I didn't know that. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, totally. I interviewed them on the roof, and the camera kept on blowing because it was so windy. But no, they were great. So we had to move it to their lower studio. So it's a two-part interview.
Yeah. Their house is beautiful too. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I've also been to Jamaica with them. We painted.
Me too. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. What did you paint with them out there?
We painted on. We had a project painting Haile Selassie's high school in Kingston, Jamaica, on the edge of Trench Town. Nice. Which was like wild, super wild, and it was the biggest mural I've ever painted in my life to this day.
Why was it?
We didn't have a lift. Well, it's just is Kingston, you know. As
Yeah.
a white man there, like
Yeah.
we had to have an entourage. We couldn't go anywhere by ourselves, and I mean, it was amazing, but it was kind of hectic. Yeah, we had a great time though, and you know, John knows everyone there.
Mm-hmm.
Showed us around. We stayed all over the island. But yeah, the mural that I painted the wall was a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be. It was like 5 stories of scaffolding.
Whoa.
Jamaican scaffolding.
Ooh, so bamboo and
we
straw.
No, yeah, it was metal, but it didn't really, the ladders on the side of it didn't really, they were very small.
Uh-huh.
And then also we only had maybe like 5 planks of wood, so we're just constantly having to move the planks around, and it was kind of sketchy.
Yeah.
But I was kind of used to it from doing it in Mexico, so it wasn't too bad. And it was an experience, you know. It was so much fun.
So we were talking about St. Pete and Denver, and now we're talking a little about trips. Let's go back to like moving to St. Pete. What do you like about being here? And
we were in Denver and I loved it there, but the winters were just too much. Me and my wife, we were so used to living in the Caribbean in Mexico that we kind of needed that again. And my wife's daughters, who were also all from Denver, they'd all kind of split off, and one moved to California, one's moved to Bozeman, and then one of her other daughters moved here to St. Pete. So there wasn't really anything keeping us in Denver anymore. And we looked around places that we wanted to live that were warm, but with easy kind of access to be able to fly back to the UK. So the West Coast was kind of out of the question. And then we'd been down to visit her daughter in St. Pete, and we loved it here. The beaches are amazing. We loved the Gulf of Mexico. The water is just like, you know, super tranquil.
Warm,
and it just kind of it was the climate's exactly the same as it was in Mexico, and it just was like, yeah, it was a no-brainer.
Oh, hi there. How you doing? We interrupt this beautiful, super awesome podcast for me to invite you to imagine this. You and me in the beautiful tropical islands of Hawaii painting together. That is true. It sounds impossible, but this May 21 to 26, I will be in the island of Kauai offering a 4-day art retreat. And my best friend, Dyer, who's offering up her spot up Nishakra. She's an awesome psychic healer. We will be painting, I will be teaching. I encourage you to check out the webpage on nishakra.com. And yeah, I hope you can make it, because why not? Let's paint in nature, right? All right, blessings. Yeah, nice. And now you got this studio.
Yeah, so after being here for a while, I'd never really been much of a studio artist. I'm kind of new to painting canvases and studio work. I'm very much a spray paint graffiti artist and always have been. But then, you know, as life has moved on and people are pushing to buy artworks, and especially over COVID, actually, I started doing a lot more canvas work and stuff like that. And then so when we moved here, I was like, oh, maybe I'll get a studio, because I was doing it in the house, but then, you know, then you've got stuff everywhere, and I'm kind of messy in my studio. I don't like to have to put all my stuff away at the end of the day, blah, blah, blah. So we rented a studio around the corner, just a small 400 square foot room, kind of like the same size as this room. And I quickly outgrew it, wanting, you know, wood chopping machines and the laser cutting machine and like stuff that just wasn't enough space. And we were looking at bigger spaces to rent, and then it was just so expensive, and we felt it was a better investment to just buy somewhere. And we were looking at buying a commercial space, but they were just crazy expensive and way too big for what we needed. And then my wife thought it would be a good idea. I was like, why don't we just like look for there's so many of these old bungalow places that are kind of like run down and stuff. We could just buy one of those and make the investment, do it up as a studio. And, you know, if in the end we don't need it, we've like redone the house and fixed it up, and then it'll have real sale value. So it's kind of like a wash, you know?
Nice.
So that's what we did.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Better than paying rent.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
Get a mortgage and, you know, expand that and get the best. Do you think now that you got like like a whole house to make art? Is it inspiring you to make art?
It's inspiring, but it's also a bit overwhelming. It's like, damn, look at all this space. So, and also, I just wanted to come here and just start making artwork straight away. So I come here and I work, and I'm just working on stuff when really I should just like focus on like remodeling a lot of it first and then doing that. But like, I'm just too excited to create stuff, and I just like to be in my zone and do that. Whereas my wife's definitely more on the wanting to do projects and revamp the place. So I'm kind of holding out on her to bring her special skills to the place. Yeah.
I wish you were closer to me so that way I could just come here and do art with you. But it's like, what, like 40 minutes away? I don't even drive.
Right, you don't drive? No?
I'm learning, but I don't have the biggest balls for driving by myself yet. Working at it.
Well, Florida's probably the easiest place to learn how to drive. Everyone drives really slow, so.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, in my experience.
Okay.
We went back to Denver last week, and I forgot how crazy it is there. Like, driving around, everyone's just like, it's crazy. I'm scared to drive in Denver.
What about England? You obviously are from there.
Yep.
You still got a spot there with your turntables and your records and your kids.
Yeah, I mean, when I left England in 2015, I left with just a few things in storage. Didn't have any ties back to England apart from family. It was with my ex-girlfriend at the time. We moved to Mexico. And then, fast forward through my living in Mexico and then being with my wife, we've started going back now, and I have 2 children with my ex-girlfriend who moved back to England. So I go back a lot to spend time with my kids. So we bought a house back in England, and I have a studio there in my house there. And it's nice to have a base there,
Yeah, have a foot in the country that you're from.
Yeah. And it's kind of nice. I never thought I'd actually ever live back in my hometown, but it's kind of nice going back with fresh eyes and a different aspect, growing up a lot, having not lived there for over 10 years. And so, yeah.
How is the British scene for art, street art, graffiti?
It's growing. I feel like it's better here in some ways in terms of if you want to do it for a living. There's definitely more money here for it.
Here, the States or
in the States? Okay. In the States in general, yeah. I found that people are much more, it's more of a standard that people get paid like a good amount to paint. Generally. There's still people out there that want stuff for free, and that's going to be anyway, and we can pick and choose those. If it's good for the soul, then maybe we'll do it. But in England, it's still kind of hard because there's the weather aspect. So you've only got maybe like 5 or 6 months out of the year where it's actually good enough weather to even paint outside. And then it's definitely more of a graffiti culture in England that's come from the art movement at the moment. So there's still a lot of that kind of battle between street art and graffiti in England. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of funny. It's a different world.
As a person who both does graffiti and street art, how do you feel about that whole rivalry between the both art
I'll tell you
movements?
what's the weird thing is because in England we have like a lot of what we call legal walls, like people can go and practice on, but they're like strictly, in my opinion, strictly graffiti walls. Like they always have been, always will be. And there's rules to those walls, If you're going to go over someone, you don't just go and practice over some like crazy wild style burner.
Right.
You go and you paint over something that you feel you can do as good, and you have to cover the whole thing. And, there's rules. But that's completely gone now. There's lots of street artists that come out of college and they're like, oh, there's these free walls. And then they'll just go and practice and put a piece right in the middle of a really big graffiti piece. And then the graffiti artist is getting pissed off because, sorry, I don't know if we can swear, but anyway.
Yeah, you can.
Because for obvious reasons, someone's gone over the middle of their piece with like a practice thing straight out of art college.
Yeah, no, it's insulting.
But then also it's like, well, it's a legal wall, people go, that's the argument of the other side is, well, it's a legal wall, people go over each other, you paint your piece and you take a flick and then it's done. But like, that's not the culture that we grew up in. So there's a lot of conflicts there that happens, and I can see both sides. I can see how it would be annoying, but that's happening everywhere, and you either choose to be pissed off about it and have this negative energy and connotation with it all, that you end up hating all street artists and blah blah blah. You can just be like, find the person and respectively teach them about the culture and the rules and stuff like that, so that maybe they won't do it to somebody else.
Yeah.
But as soon as you have this negative connotation and you start being like, hey man, fuck you, what the hell? Yeah. I'm going to start dogging all your stuff, blah, blah, blah. Then they're just going to push back, and it's just going to end up with this negativity that spreads, it's education is what's needed rather than conflict, in my opinion.
Right. And there's not like, a lot of communication is just like straight up. I guess the communication happens in the streets with art going over each other.
It used to be. I mean, it would happen in the streets, and you would talk to the person in person. Now it's all on Instagram.
Yeah, and then it gets out of hand, and I understand that. So, once again, as somebody who does both, you don't care about a fight. You just want to paint. You know how to respect. Graffiti, but you also want to go past it and not just get locked into lettering.
I mean, I understand all sides of it, but I'm a very peaceful person. I avoid conflict at all costs. If there's a way to kind of hash anything out by just a conversation and sitting and having a beer, I'll choose that any day of the week.
Yeah, I can totally understand the frustration of graffiti, that it's the root, it's the foundation, it's the original street art, and now you got street art becoming all popular, and graffiti's kind of become a passé thing, and they don't respect it as much, even though it's the foundation of what street art.
Well, I think also the die-hard purists, which I would class myself as one, is like when we grew up doing that kind of stuff and painting graffiti and then moving into the mural world, we put so much more work and effort into doing that. We didn't have the internet and YouTube and all of this stuff to copy from. We'd steal a graffiti book from our art class at school, like Style File or Style Wars. We've watching Style Wars over and over and over again, and all of these old school graph movies. And we just learned ourselves. We developed our own style ourselves. Now everybody's copying everything, and it's just so much easier. And people so the purists they kind of hold on to that. It's like, oh, you know what, man, fuck you. You didn't fight as hard as we did to be able to do what we do, so you should respect me. And there's these egos flying around. It's like, come on, man, be humble. Take a step back and be like, instead of doing that, you're saying you're a purist. You fought hard and you learned all of this stuff. So educate.
Yeah.
It's an easier and more, easier on your energy to do that than it is to have all of this negative output,
Right. One of the biggest beefs between street art and graffiti is Banksy against that other dude. I can't remember.
Robbo.
Robbo?
Yeah, Robbo.
What's your opinion about all that? Do you like Banksy? He's British, right?
He's British, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say I like his artwork. I love what he's done for the culture.
Uh-huh.
I would say he's probably the main reason why graffiti and street art culture has become so popular, especially in the UK. He's one of the first people that was getting paid like hundreds of thousands of pounds for stencils and street art stuff,
Which can blow the mind when you're like, really? That much for that?
But then every time you're painting a mural in England and a passerby walks past and we go, oh my God, are you Banksy? You're just like, someone says that to me one more time.
No. Yeah, what the fuck is a Banksy anyways? Is it a person, is it a group?
Did you see that thing about Banksy? He went into, I can't remember where it was, like some populated area in the centre of London, and he set up a stall selling his original Banksy pieces for like £10-20 a print, and nobody bought it.
I heard that when you did that in New York.
But they were real. Maybe it was in New York.
Yeah.
And nobody bought them.
No, I saw that, and I was really intrigued by that because he made himself vulnerable.
Yeah.
He's almost like proving to her, you see, my art's really shitty and nobody would buy it unless they know it's a Banksy.
And that's kind of like in recent years, I've kind of come to respect him a lot more because he kind of does take the piss out of himself and the art culture and everything and just kind of exposes it for how
bullshit
it is, yeah. Like when he sold that piece at Sotheby's and it shredded itself on the drop of the hammer, like that's just crazy, you know. Yeah, I mean, I do have respect for him. I'm not a big fan of his art, but yeah, he's done a lot for the movement.
Yeah, that's good. I can appreciate that too. So, you are both Klone and Klonism, depending if you're doing your graffiti or street art. Can you tell me a little about your name and the differences and your different expressions?
I always find it funny talking about how people came with their names, and I can feel I'm kind of stuck with mine because once you've got it, you're kind of stuck with it. But I always wrote Klone. That was my graffiti tag, Klone. And then as I was getting into doing the mural stuff, I kind of wanted to differentiate my graffiti between my murals. So I started calling myself Klonism. And then realizing that going to like Spanish-speaking countries, they struggle to pronounce Klonism, you know, but then I'm just stuck with it now. And I like my name, and it's just a name, really, at the end of the day.
Yeah. But you still do illegal graffiti?
No, I don't do illegal graffiti too much. No, I mean, it's a grey area, I guess. I'll do like abandoned spots and stuff like that. But yeah, because I had when I used to do a lot of graffiti in England, I used to paint trains and do a lot of track sides and stuff like that. And then I ended up getting arrested and getting in a lot of trouble for it, which is when I kind of started doing like community work and teaching kids how to do artwork in community centres, and because the judge said I was going to go to prison, so I was like, oh my god, I need to start doing some things to like make it look like I'm not a bad guy, you know.
Yeah.
So then I started doing that, and then when the trial came and I was getting sentenced, I got found guilty, and then I didn't get sent to prison. I got 300 hours of community service, and I was like 6 months with a curfew bracelet.
Wow.
Which was still kind of hard. Like the community service took like 4 years to complete.
Wow.
Because I was just doing the minimum, 6 hours a week.
You were like parole or something?
I was on parole, yeah.
Wow.
And then, so after I got sentenced, I was doing this community work for like volunteering, and they, after I got sentenced, I was like, well, I don't need to do this anymore, so I'm leaving. They were like, no, don't go. Like, we want you to stay and keep doing this, and we'll pay you. I'm like, what? You'll pay me? Like, that's cool. Like, how much? They're like, £30 an hour. I'm like, that's like half my week's wage, like for 2 hours of work. I'm
wow.
Like, okay, yeah, sure. And then, so I'm doing that on my evenings from doing my 9 to 5 delivery.
So what was that job specifically? You're teaching kids to
I was working in after-school youth workshop, youth centres that would like open up and do workshops to try and take kids off the street, just up to no good, you know.
Okay.
So I would go in. Yeah, I would go in. We would buy we'd go to the thrift store in England. We call it a charity shop, and we would buy like 100 vinyl records for like $10.
Okay.
And then we'd spray paint backgrounds on them, and then we'd go in with Posca pens, and then do their name in graffiti. Oops, that's
Somebody's stealing a truck.
I lent on my keys. Oops. Then we'd go in with Posca pens and we'd write their name in graffiti, and they'd colour them in, and we'd show them how to develop letter forms and characters, and we'd be copying stuff out of graffiti magazines and stuff like that. And yeah, it was really fun. That's
so ironic that they catch you doing graffiti and your punishment is to teach others to do quote-unquote graffiti.
Yeah, but it was...
Or at least graffiti style art.
It was always kind of a way of like showing them that you can do it, but not illegally. You know, that's kind of what their mentality was. I mean, it's kind of like the philosophy that if you teach if a kid's going to go and do something like that anyway, may as well control how they approach it, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some people who are super duper purists would say that graffiti ain't graffiti unless it's done illegally.
Yeah.
But we would say graffiti style art.
Yeah. I mean, we called them graffiti workshops. And then after I had doing that for a couple hours a week, I got another one. So someone recommended me for another one. So now I'm doing 4 hours a week, earning £120 a week, which was more than what I was earning in my 40-hour-a-week delivery job.
Wow.
So I quit my job. And I went self-employed. I was 21 years old at the time, and I've been a self-employed artist ever since.
Very nice. Yeah. How many years were you teaching, and how did that take you?
So I was doing that primarily, doing kids workshops. It built up variably to about 10 to 20 hours a week. So I was doing okay. And then through that, kids' parents would be like, "Oh, can you do like my kid's bedroom?" So I'd do like a graffiti piece on the kid's bedroom, and it kind of just kept on steamrolling. And then I started working for the local council, doing big projects, which were community projects. And we did a big mural for the Rugby League World Cup and the London 2012 Olympics and the Tour de France, and like all of these big projects that the council were throwing money at.
Wow.
And then that's how I was like, wow, I'm like now learning how to do things other than graffiti and painting, like portrait things and doing all of these other stuff, just kind of learning on the job, you know.
Amazing. That's so funny that you got that job by being an illegal, busted graffiti artist.
I always call it my silver lining, you know.
Sorry?
I always call it my silver lining.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
But you were working with the government. Did that like feel weird in some strange way, or did you just surrender it to be like, well, as long as making art, who cares?
Yeah, at that point, I'd kind of given up on. I didn't really see it as me being a graffiti artist anymore. I don't really class myself as a graffiti artist anymore. I like doing graffiti, but I'm not a graffiti artist. I'm a mural painter, you know. And
then you started doing other kinds of art that was not lettering.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like, tell me about your non-lettering art. You do a lot of animals.
I mean, that actually came about more like when I was doing mural stuff in England, I would get requests to do, you know, a portrait of someone's dog or whatever. And it was fun, it paid the bills, but I never really found my kind of niche of like what I wanted to do until I moved to Mexico. And then I saw all of these like bright colors, and like the folk art in Mexico was just so...
Do you need help opening it?
I would like to open that, yeah. I just broke my bottle opener.
Oh, no. I got a bottle opener in my belt.
Yeah, and it just...
Paulina always laughs at me when I open up my beer bottle with my belt.
What,
it's a belt. I'm not opening it with my dick, I swear.
That would be a good party trick, though.
Right? Imagine, whoa, you'd have to be so hard to fucking... Jesus. Okay, let's not go there. Why did you move to Mexico from England?
At the time, my sister was living in Chile.
Okay. Which is very far from Mexico, I might say.
Yes. But hear me out.
Okay. There's an explanation to this.
There was a lot of factors. I mean, I was working self-employed in England, but then the new Conservative government came in, and they made some serious cuts and shifts within the public sector, and a lot of the people that were hiring me out of the council to do these workshops and stuff all got fired. So then, like, I went from like having loads of work to having zero work, and I had some savings, and I was just like, well, what the hell am I doing here? Like, I'm not going to get a normal job, so I just took my savings and we got a one-way flight to Cancun, with the plan to travel from Cancun through South America and meet my sister in Chile.
Okay, wow, that would have been a long journey.
So we landed in Cancun, and then we drove 2 hours south, and that's as far as we got in Akumal.
Isn't Cancun the Yucatan Peninsula? Like, can you even, like, you gotta get out of that peninsula even just to get to the way that would take you down to South America.
No, you would go down, so from there you would go down the Yucatan coast, you would cut through Belize and into Guatemala. Gotcha. And like,
yeah, just the Caribbean.
Yeah, exactly, right. Yeah. But then, yeah, at the time we were looking still for like cheap places to live, and we were part of this website called housesitters.com or something like that. And we found this ranch in the middle of the jungle behind Akumal Pueblo, that was just like an abandoned ranch that they needed someone to live there because it kept on getting like vandalized and overgrown and blah blah blah. So we ended up moving in, but there was zero power, so we lived there completely off the grid.
When was this? What year? Just
this was in May of 2017.
Okay. Nice. I went to Cancun in 2007. I had a show with a couple of local artists there, Leon Alva, Marisol Estrebó.
Okay.
And we had a free person show in Cancun. Nice. And then I went down to Isla Mujeres and Tulum. Even went all the way to Tikal.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
love the area. Love the Yucatan Peninsula. It's very spiritual, beautiful Mayan area.
Yeah, I mean, I loved it there so much. My kids were born there. It's a beautiful country and a beautiful area of Mexico. The food, the people, the Mayans, like it's just everything about it. I loved it. The beaches, the weather.
How long were you powerless? Hi, we take this little pause from our conversations for me to let you know that I got a brand new art book. This is my second art book, Shamanic Journey, that just came out with Last Gasp Publications. It's a 256-paged book, full color, shiny, beautiful pages with full of my art, writing, stories, basically everything I've done in the last 13 years. And I worked really hard on this book. It took me months to lay out by myself. And obviously the art has been a labor of love of many years. And I've condensed it all in this beautiful book that now is available on positcreations.net. You can get a signed version. You can get an unsigned version for a little bit cheaper. And yeah, this won't run out of electricity. On this digital world where we gotta charge everything, or a solar flare could knock out the electricity of the world and you'd be like, whoa, where did all my Chris Dyer go? No, this runs on energy forever. You never gotta charge it, you never gotta water it. It'll always be there to give you new inspiration and art. And I've done this with a lot of love, and I hope that you will get a copy for your own personal library. And reflect yourself in it and make your own book and story of your life. But here's mine, and I hope you will enjoy it. positcreations.net. Thank you.
I think it was, it took like 2 years before we just got like a tiny little bit of solar.
Wow.
And
so you had to learn how to live without electricity for 2 full years.
Yeah, and I'm from the city.
And how was that?
It was difficult at first.
Yeah.
Especially because, we moved in there like right in the beginning of the summer. So there's mosquitoes everywhere and it's hot as hell, and like it was, there was nights I even cried myself to sleep, just like, what the fuck am I doing here? Like, I'm just getting eaten alive.
Yeah.
Like, it was crazy. But then after a while, you learn,
change.
Yeah, very radical change. Like,
once again, why did you do such a radical change between like England to like, off the grid?
I mean, I've always been a nature person. I've always loved camping, even though this is very different from camping. But like, I was sick of the city. I was sick of the grind. I was sick of the rat race. I was sick of all of it. I just wanted to disconnect and just be away from it all, and that was a very extreme way of doing it, but it worked. I mean, after the first month, we got our mosquito screen over the bed and figured out how to be there, and we would go into town. I was volunteering at the local library, which was more of a community center in Akumal, and they would let us use their Wi-Fi and their fridge and freezer. So we would go there and freeze loads of bottles of water so that we would have like cold stuff there at the ranch. We'd learn little tricks. But yeah, just learning to live by the light of the sun and going to bed when the sun goes to bed and waking up when the sun wakes up and just reading books and living by candlelight. And we cook. We had gas, so we'd be cooking, but we pretty much lived vegan because we couldn't keep any meat or anything there, so there was lots of beans and vegetables, and yeah, it was a big change, and I learned a lot from it, and I don't regret a single minute that we were there.
Yeah, no, it sounds very magical, and you're prepared for the apocalypse. You know, if a solar flare takes
I definitely learned how to use a machete.
No, it sounds amazing, because I feel I'm not praying for a solar flare. I hope we don't go through a crazy apocalyptic episode, even though it seems like different parts of the world are taking their turns at this point. But whenever it's our turn, if we do get one, if there's no electricity, I always imagine like what would happen if St. Pete doesn't have power for 3 months? Are people gonna go out in the streets and start eating each other out? Or we will just have to like learn how to like eat mosquitoes and be all shanty and help each other? Like you already got mad practice, so I think you're like ahead of the curve. You'll be like chilling.
Yeah. I mean, it's not hard once you get used to. I think most people, if you'd ask most people what they would be most scared about in that situation, I think most people would probably answer that they wouldn't have a phone.
Yeah, they'd be like, all of a sudden, there's no feed. I can't express myself, or I can't be influenced. And who am I now in the reflection of that absence?
yeah. And I learned that a lot, like doing that, living off grid. That just learning to be with yourself. You know, that's the hardest part. You know, all of the other things you can adapt to, the you know, your diet, the electricity, all of it. Being with yourself, with your own thoughts and your own company is a very, very hard thing to do. Yeah. And that's what I feel like I got the most out of, you know, like.
Boredom is a factor too.
Yeah.
Boredom is an interesting feeling that we don't get to experience too much in our North American reality because we're so busy all the time, you know. Yeah. And then when it's more chill time, it's like, oh, where's my entertainment? What's happening now?
Yeah, exactly.
But you have to have a new dialogue and relationship with boredom and be okay with it and be like, oh, that's the time to do nothing, I guess.
Yeah.
And be okay just existing, being, sitting there, looking at the sun, doing nothing. Yeah. Which is way more natural for a human being. Like, we should be at least half the time doing that.
And I do that still now. Like, I'll sit, even though my phone's there, I'll even be here, and I'll just, like, sometimes I can just sit and look out the window for like 10, 15 minutes, just like, you know, processing thoughts, you know, and I feel like that's, even though I don't know if you'd call it meditation, but it's a form of meditation in my opinion, you know. Like.
But I think calling it meditation, once again, turns it into a homework, an activity, like, oh, I'm meditating, so I'm doing, but looking out the window is like you're doing nothing. And you almost got to combat the guilt of like, oh, I'm doing nothing when there's so much to do. But you know what? I'm going to just let myself do nothing.
Well, and it's also, I guess meditation, I would call it more meditation because I guess it's doing something because you're calling it an act of doing something. But it's just clearing your mind, you know. It's trying to empty your mind of thoughts, which is really difficult to do. Even just, you know, sitting, looking out the window, there's the thoughts creep in. Oh, I've got to do this tomorrow. Oh, damn, that deadline's in like next week. Oh, damn, I forgot to hit this person up. You know, like they just creep in, you know. So I think it is important to try and give yourself at least, you know, 10 minutes of that a day, you know.
10 minutes sounds like not enough.
No, it's nowhere near enough. But like, if you can manage 10 minutes, then you can up it to 20 minutes. You can up it to half an hour. But
would you say that doing a little bit of nothing is your spiritual practice, as much as perhaps you don't have like a formalized spiritual path that you've chosen?
Yeah, I mean, it's a fine line between doing nothing and procrastinating, right? I'm very good at procrastinating. No, my spiritual practice is painting. I get that. I feel like I get the most kind of soothing things where I can really not let anything else enter my mind is when I'm painting. Or drawing or doing something creative. It's the only time I can really not let any outside noise in my brain. So that's my. Are
you not thinking when you're painting?
No, not really. I'm thinking about the task at hand and painting, and yeah, I just, my mind clears. Like I don't. There are times when, like, you know, if I'm going through a bad time emotionally or something, I'll try and paint, and those outside thoughts start coming in or whatever, and that's when I can't. I feel disjointed. I can't concentrate, you know. But that rarely happens.
Sounds like art is like a filter that purifies your being.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, I've had these conversations with people about, you know, how people they've really gotten into yoga or meditation or whatever kind of thing they use to, you know, meditate or, you know, just try and stay calm or whatever.
Uh-huh.
And people have tried to get me to do yoga, and I've tried it before, and I'm not really into that. I'm more into, like, I find painting for me is like the meditation for me.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Even though it's less physical.
Yeah.
Like, you know, do you got like a sport or a physical practice to keep your body in check too?
Yeah, exercise is a tough one for me. I used to skateboard a lot, and then I didn't like, you know, as you get older, your bones break a bit easier and stuff.
Yeah.
It hurts when you fall down.
Uh-huh.
Concrete seems to harden the older you get.
Yeah.
So I do, you know, I like to swim. I do weights. I try and eat as healthy as I can.
You hit the beach a lot here.
Yeah, we do lots of long walks on the beach. But yeah, I'm not a gym person, that's for sure. I'll play football whenever the opportunity strikes, or tennis, or pickleball, and stuff like that.
Not pickleball.
I mean, I'm a big tennis person, but it's really hard to find people to play tennis with.
Yeah.
And because I don't play it as often enough, I suck. So as soon as I find someone I want to play with, I suck. So it's like pickleball is kind of like tennis, but it's easier and it's easier to find.
I'll play tennis with you one day if we got all the elements for it.
Okay.
I took tennis classes in Peru when I was a kid.
Oh, nice. Yeah,
Not that good, but I know how to fucking hit a ball and hopefully get it in the squares or rectangles or whatever. So back to your art, you paint these beautiful animals. What's your connection to all these animals that you paint? What are you saying with these animals that seem to have their own personality and their own style? Is it like some kind of like particular clone universe you're creating through it?
Oh, I like that. Back to being in Mexico, it really had a big influence on my artwork. I was generally only like a graffiti painter before.
Uh-huh.
At least that's what I enjoyed painting the most.
Yeah.
But then when I started seeing all of this Oaxacan folk art in Mexico, and they have all of these sculptures in the shops that are called alebrijes.
Alebrijes. So
and they're
cool.
like little mythical animals. And then once I delved more into the culture of them, they're basically like your spirit animals that you get in the afterlife. And all of the culture of the Day of the Dead, Dia de los Muertos, and all of that. And it really fascinated me, all of that stuff. And that celebration of life after death and all of it was just, I've never really been into much spiritual kind of thing, but that really spoke to me.
Yeah,
you know?
It's a joyful, not that any other paths have to be unjoyful about being soul or spiritual, but the Mexicans celebrate death and even those alebrijes, those interdimensional beings from the other side of reality.
Yeah.
Probably because they eat a lot of mushrooms in that area too.
Yeah. Well, more peyote, I think, but yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's peyote region.
So yeah, and I really started seeing these animals as more like shapes, and I liked all the colourful patterns, and I kind of broke away from the thought process that when you're painting a character or an animal, it should look like the animal. It should have the colours of the animal, and that's it, you know. When I was like, wait, I can start doing like them more as like shapes and putting like crazy colory fills and stuff inside them. And
yeah, it's almost like you're doing some graffiti freestyling in the animal shapes.
So I kind of took that and I developed my own style from it. There is definitely a lot of Mexican artists that do kind of that kind of stuff, like Senkoe, Farid Ruida. There's countless of them, but they all have developed their own kind of style with it, and I feel like I have mine, especially because I tried to do like a bit more of a black bold outline on my characters, and I kind of started to bring a bit more of like graffiti culture into it a little bit. And then since I started doing them, I started naming them, and every time I would paint a mural, I would like find a kid around and get him or her to name the animal, and then I'd put a story behind it, and the intention was to maybe write some kids' books, and yeah, I mean the possibilities are endless, you know.
Yeah.
I have lots of ideas that can go with them, but yeah, I love them, and I feel like I have each one is like a different spirit animal that I could possibly have, because I don't think I could ever have one. I feel like they're all my spirit animals.
Yeah, that's so cool. And I hope you do end up making your kids' book, naming the different animals and their relationships. And
Yeah. Yeah, it's just another project. I mean, I wish there was more hours in a day sometimes.
Well, there's more years in a life. That's how I see it with projects like that. Because it's like, okay, this year will be this project. And then the next year comes like, oh, I'm going to keep on doing it. Boring. Let's go to the next project. And you just give different years to different vibes.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I mentioned it earlier before we jumped on the camera, but I feel like that I suffer from some kind of ADHD tendencies. I don't know if I would get diagnosed that, but I feel like a lot of artists have that kind of thought process where it's really struggle to like stick to doing one thing all of the time. We get bored easily and want to try something new and keep pushing boundaries. And it's like, I'm done with this. I want to try something else. You know, like I feel like I've had this discussion a lot with a lot of people, and we all have that common similarities, you know.
Well, I think that's what's the blessings of the different mediums that we handle. We can both be in the studio cutting wood, painting it with acrylics, or we can go and hit a yard and paint a piece with spray paint.
Yeah.
Totally different games, perhaps even similar delivery in the and what we put out, or totally different once again if you're going graph or character based. But at least you're switching it up and keeping it interesting and keeping the novelty up. And each spot has its own flavor and nuances. Because if we're just in the studio, that drives you crazy. And if you're just on the road, that wears you down.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to have those breaks and switch it up and just kind of rotate them a little bit,
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I found that a lot since doing studio work. Before I would just always be doing murals, but then I'd have like slums of being like, I can't really be bothered doing this anymore. But then what do I do? So then you just keep doing it, and then you just kind of lose the enjoyment. But now I'm doing the studio work, and I've got into more doing like wood shop work, and now I do graph and murals. It kind of feels like every time I switch to each one, it's new and exciting. You know? So
it's so fun.
It's enjoyable.
I'd say I've gotten more into graffiti style, not lettering, but like illegal bombing kind of vibes, or my galactic dude character lately, from having more graffiti people like Rhyme and Dr. Dax and Verse. They're all like come into my life from living here in Florida, and they coming through and they take me out to the train, and it's like new for me to be painting out there in the middle of the night in the darkness. But it also kind of has started to spark a little bit like, this is like pure art for the sake of making art. There's nothing to win here, not even ego points, because nobody's gonna see this other than what I share it. But I could share anything to my followers and they would be stoked. But there's something interesting about taking a spot and making it your own, and
especially when you're doing like the you know, the illegal aspect of it, and you're painting a train or somewhere where it's kind of could be a bit dangerous. You get this adrenaline like inside you. It's like that is the addictiveness for me. Like, and I will never lose that. Like, there's always going to be a part of me that wants to, you know, if I see like an abandoned building with like a rooftop on it that hasn't been painted, I'm like thinking instantly, like, how can I go and do that?
Right. Or an abandoned boat.
Yeah, or an abandoned boat.
Or get the nicest spot on the top.
Yeah, I guess the illegal spots get a bit nicer and nicer these days.
Here in Florida, you know what? I learned a couple days ago that an abandoned, crashed out boat is totaled, and it's whoever claims it. I could take that boat and make it my boat if I decide to repair it.
Yeah, but
which I am with art.
Yeah, you could do. I mean, it's the most expensive thing you'll ever pay for in your life is owning a boat.
Yeah, I don't need to throw money at a broken boat. Going back to Mexico. So you were living in Mexico, and then you did like what, a street art festival?
Oh, so I moved there in March 2015, sorry, not 2017. So then in 2018, there was a lady there who has a restaurant called Turtle Bay. And she was a big part of the community. She's from San Francisco, I believe.
Okay.
But she lived in Acoma for like 20 years. And she does a lot of stuff for the community and raises money and stuff. And she works a lot with the mayor. And in 2018, she was working with the mayor to put up new street lights that go over the bridge connecting like the hotel area to the pueblo. Because a lot of the workers working there and they're walking home in the dark, and they wanted to put a recycle program in, and then they were going to do like a little mini festival. And she knew I painted. I've done some paintings for her before, and she's like, hey, we're thinking actually we might do like some murals for this little festival we're going to do. Do you want to like organize the mural side of it? I'm like, hell yeah. But if we're going to do it, we need to do it like this and like that, because I've been to so many that are really badly organized, you know.
Uh-huh.
And so she's like, yeah, cool. And then it just grew into this monster where we put this open call out, and we had like 200 people apply, mostly from America, some from Mexico. And we accepted everyone.
200 people? Nah.
Yeah.
You accepted 200 people?
Yeah.
For one festival?
Yeah.
Whoa. So
they didn't all come.
Okay.
We ended up
pay your own flight and come and pay.
Yeah, so we were offering, you know, beachfront accommodation for 1 week.
Uh-huh.
Food and paint included. You just had to get your flight. This was a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, these beachfront accommodations, it's a free holiday basically, and you get to
painters want to paint new places.
Exactly. And majority of the people came, and we ended up with 150 artists painting in this tiny ass town. And
wow, that must have been crazy.
I was like the main organizer of the mural side of things, which was wild. Like, and we don't have any lifts. You know, we only have a limited amount of scaffolding, and you know, everyone's coming straight away. Like, oh, we want to paint straight away. I'm like, well, we only have set amount of scaffolding, so you have to share. So you know, trying to get people to like just simmer down a bit. It's like, look, you're here for a week, man. Just go have a margarita and sit on the beach for the afternoon, and then he'll use the scaffolding, and then we'll move it to you. You know, try and work with us. So there's a few demanding people, and like it is with everyone, you know.
What was the lineup that first year? Like, who's some artists that you remember? The
biggest artists we had Nomad Clan.
Where are they from?
They're from Manchester. They're friends of mine, actually. We had a bunch of people from New York. Sind and Rhea. Kipto came the first year. A bunch of Miami artists. Ivan Rock, Nate D. Oh man, there were so many.
Like a lot of graffiti or both graffiti and...
No, they were mainly muralists.
Uh-huh.
Mainly muralists. Pretty much every artist you could think of in Miami came.
Wow. Atomico?
Atomico, no. He didn't apply.
Hoxo?
No, he's a graffiti writer though, isn't he?
Hoxo?
Oh, no, I'm not thinking of someone else.
Yeah.
No, so it's Luis Valle, Ivan Rock, Nate D, Claudio Picasso, CP1.
Uh-huh.
Who else was there? There was, I don't know, man. There was so many people. It was insane.
Was it stressful?
Yeah, very much so. Although, like, I was super excited, and I don't really get too stressed. So everyone's like coming up to me, like, "Hey, man, like, how are you dealing with all this? You're being so calm." Like, I'm like, you know, tequila helps.
Hi. We take a little break from our super awesome podcast show so that I, your artist friend Chris Dyer, can tell you about my brand, Positive Creations, which I have been doing for 20 years. And with this project, I share my art through different products, maybe beautiful clothes that you can use in normal life or in the festival world, or skateboards that you can ride, or games like puzzles, or kendamas and flow toys, or use slip mats for your records. Basically a lot of functional things that just add fun and magic into your existence. So I hope you like it. Check out positivecreations.net. positivecreations.net. That was not a glitch. And yeah, I'll talk to you soon. Blessings.
And no, we just all had a great time. It was so magical. And then at the end of the festival, we have, because it's a very Mayan community, so we invited all of the artists to go and do a temazcal and get blessed by the shaman and all of this stuff. It was, for a lot of people, they did it the first time out of the US, and like experiencing this kind of culture was like mind-blowing to them.
I love a good temazcal.
Yeah, no, it was amazing. And then we did it again the next year, and then COVID happened, and then we did a small one the year after COVID, and then we did the last one, which was in 2021. Was it 2021? Oh, I don't know. The years get lost anyway. And the last one was really good as well. We had 100, and again another 150 artists or whatever. Like, and this town is tiny. Like,
yeah, no, sounds crazy. In Montreal, we'll have like 15 to 20 artists for our mural festivals. Here in St. Pete is also something like that. So 150. The whole town must have had artists everywhere painting on the walls.
It was insane. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was. Well, I don't even know how we managed it, to be honest. But we felt so bad saying no to people that were so good, and like, we had a budget to do it, so it's like, yeah, screw it. Like, why not? And yeah, it was amazing. I never got paid any money out of it. Like, just the connections that I made were the most valuable thing.
Yeah, that you meet so many artists who then later on are like, hey, you hooked me up with your festival, I'll hook you up with mine.
Which is not the reason why I did it, but like...
Still, why not?
It's still, I just like to meet people, and spend time with people and learn from different people and seeing other people paint live. And
right, you could have learned so many tricks.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun, Like,
I know there were a lot of mural festivals in that area, and
not really.
No, there wasn't one in like Isla Mujeres.
They did seawalls in Isla Mujeres.
Yeah,
which is part of that Panja Seed Foundation, whatever. They did one in Isla Mujeres. I think they did one in Holbox.
Holbox, that's the one I wanted to try.
But they weren't like continuing. They just did a one-off there, and then they did a one-off in Isla Mujeres. They'd like dot around,
Okay.
And then they would do like small ones in Cancun, but they were more like Meeting of Styles. Meeting of Styles Cancun, Meeting of Styles.
Jams.
Yeah, and then they had like a few small things in Tulum, but very small, like 10 people or whatever. So yeah, the Akamal Arts Festival was huge. I mean, and then as soon as the first year happened, it just exploded. And then the next year we had like 800 people apply. And the year after that, it was like getting into the thousands because word just kind of spread around, and heard the stories of like, oh my God, we got put up on this villa and blah, blah, blah. We just had a great time, man. We just wanted to paint, and I just wanted everyone to be there.
Yeah, what a great lifestyle. If you can show up to a different part of the world, to do what you love the most, connect with new cultures, travel. That's the beauty of street art.
I mean, the only reason why we're able to do it is because the climate there was so rough on the murals, and we could only get a sponsor from a local Mexican paint called 360, which is good paint to use, but it doesn't hold up very well in the sun and the humidity.
Spray cans?
A lot of every year, spray cans and vinyl paint we would use too. But the weather, like after 1 year, the murals would just like crumble off the wall.
Oh, what a bummer. Because I would imagine that town has now got all these epic murals from killers
You'd
from
think
around the
so,
world.
but a lot of them are just crumbled off the wall, like.
What a bummer. Almost like a waste of resources in a way.
And we tried so hard. We like some of the really good, like big ones, we'd put like UV protection on it and do all of these things to try and make them last, and they just,
Still they wouldn't?
So it's funny, some colors specifically would stay and some colors wouldn't. Some some acrylic pieces would stay, some wouldn't. Like, it was really hard to gauge like how to make them stay, because there wasn't any kind of reason to any of it, like why they were.
So you haven't found some kind of varnish that really just holds a painting?
I mean, there is some out there, but like to be able to varnish all of the murals is extremely expensive.
It's an investment.
And to be fair to Jen's credit, the woman who had the idea to put the festival on, she pretty much funded the first 2 festivals herself and put herself in the red. And, you know, in the years after, we were just recouping funds to keep going, you know. So, yeah, it was limited funding and stuff like that. And that's kind of why it hasn't gone any further, to be honest, because that just can't keep going inevitably without proper funding.
I imagine you left Mexico when Mexico didn't resonate with you anymore, but was that a difficult transition to then move to Denver after being in the Caribbean and such a rootsy kind of lifestyle? And
yeah, I mean, I would still to this day much rather live in Mexico, but I just couldn't, like, I'd outgrew it. You know, I couldn't, I felt like I was getting stagnant with my painting and stuff. I wasn't really I wasn't moving forward. And it's funny that I ended up in America, because when I left England to go to Mexico, and I've always been a traveler, I want to travel the world. America's always been like the last place on earth that I've ever wanted to go to.
Yeah.
And then I came here, I was like, wow, this place is actually like amazing, you know.
It's got a lot of options.
Yeah, and well, just, you know, each state is so different. You know?
It's like so many, like, when people generalize on America, I used to generalize on America too. And on top of it, we generalize based on their politicians, which is such a lie.
Yeah.
And to be like, oh, Americans are like this, oh, Americans like that. It's like, yeah, it's got 52 different, totally distinct flavors. And in those slices of flavors, there's like, you know, 50 different expressions and kinds of people and things happening plus.
Yeah.
So just pick what vibes with you.
Yeah, I'm just here for the barbecue food, really.
Well, I like St. Pete, you know?
Yeah, I love it here, man. It's great. It's so good. But yeah, the reason why I moved here was more just to further my art career. And, you know, doing the festival in Mexico, I'd met so many people from America that I could go to any state around and link up with someone and hang out and paint a wall, whatever, you know. It just kind of feels like I'm moving forward.
Would you like to do something similar that you did in Mexico out here in St. Pete? Or even in Largo?
Possibly, district? Possibly. Yeah, and I feel like I need to focus on myself for a bit, and just kind of go where I'm going with my own artwork stuff. But yeah, I'd totally be up for doing that again. I feel like I was very good at organising that kind of stuff. And I've kind of always been that person, even back in my day with my graffiti crew in England. I would always be the guy that would, you know, organise the jam and like just try and get people together and do something, you know, like I've always been that kind of person to try and bring people together a bit, you know.
Yeah, it's so cool. Well, I hope you succeed, even if it's just like creating like back alley jams.
Yeah, something. I mean, that's why we've got this place eventually. Like, I want loads of walls out in the back and just start having jams here at the studio.
Yeah, you want to paint all those...
No, we're going to construct some walls out in the yard.
Okay.
To have, like, them dotted around a bit, you know, and just have, like, some jams out there, you know.
Yeah, amazing. That'd be so cool.
On the side of the house.
Yeah, just paint up the house.
Yeah.
Big, like, colorful.
Yeah.
in middle residential area.
Yeah.
That'd be amazing. Well, you know, I'll be showing up with bells on.
Yeah, you're going to be the first to come and paint. Well, me and my wife are going to paint one later this week, but yeah.
Thank you.
You guys should come.
And thank you for being the first to paint my spot.
Well, yeah, you know, you've got to repay the favor.
Yeah, like I owe you. So what are your goals for the future now? It seems like you're like an artist that lives in a state of abundance, which is unusual. A lot of us artists, we can be in scarcity mentality because we got away with doing this weird thing that the adults told us we shouldn't have done or we'll be broke, but we're doing it, so already we won this beautiful game of life by doing this thing that's passionate us. But a lot of artists kind of like feel like they're like always broke and battling for the next month to come through. But it seems like you've broken up from that matrix and you can allow yourself to travel where you want to go and do your thing.
You know, there's a certain element to that, like, lifestyle of like when you're struggling as an artist, like a lot of good things, a lot of good artwork can come out of that, you know. But when you're like not relying on your artwork to you know, for money or whatever, it is a different level of freedom for sure.
You can dare make a bad
you can
painting.
make mistakes. You can do whatever without feeling the repercussions of it, you know. Which is also why I'm also kind of jealous of people that don't do art as their full-time career. They just have like their 9-to-5 job and they do artwork on the sidelines because it's the same thing, right? They don't have to have all this stress put on them creating and stuff like that. But yeah, no, I'm enjoying it as it's progressing. I guess my next goal is to open up a website and do more studio stuff. And things like that. I don't know. I just want to keep moving forward and travel and paint, you know. Like, I don't really have a major set goal. My only major set goal at the moment, which I've been struggling to complete, is like having an online shop and a website and like all the official things that these artists these days need to have, which I think if I chose, I probably wouldn't do, but I feel like I should want to. I almost don't want to. I don't know. It's a weird feeling. So, which is why I've been putting it off.
It's like well, these are the steps we have to do in order to have everything that I suppose our fan base needs from us, information, bios.
It's hard.
T-shirts for sale.
I guess I think I'm a bit of a crossroads as to where I want to take my career as an artist. Based on like what people want to see me do, based on what I want to be doing and stuff like that. I think for the most part, if I could choose, I would just paint big walls all the time, 24/7. That's what I enjoy the most.
Yeah.
But then, you know, after getting older and realizing that I can't just be up and down ladders all the time anymore, and my back hurts and
it's very physical.
I get tired very easily. And especially in the summer here, it's so hot. It's like, I don't want to be outside. I'd rather be in the air conditioning, like painting my animals in the comfort of my nice lazy boy chair.
Yeah, totally. Well, I look forward to going to Bucharest, Romania with you, like a couple weeks.
A week on Tuesday, I think it is.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. 10
Wow.
days.
I got no idea what we'll do out there.
No, it's a bit of an on-the-fly thing. Yeah, it's gonna be fun though.
Yeah, we'll get some walls, we'll paint some things. Probably this episode will come out either while we're out there or maybe already we'll have the B-roll that will be playing on top of what we're talking right now.
Yep.
We'll see what happens, but...
I mean, that's going to be a perfect example of like things that I love to do most is, you know, we're going to go to Bucharest, Romania. We don't really have an exact plan of what we're painting.
We got a hotel.
We got a hotel.
And thanks for getting your own room. Yeah. Since you say you snore so loud.
Yeah, you don't want to deal with that.
Oh, I was ready for it, but you sound like you got some really big problem there with.
But yeah, I mean, I love these kinds of trips. You know, to see what happens. Yeah,
throw yourself into not uncertainty. Uncertainty sounds like kind of like dangerous, like things could go wrong.
Let's have a loose plan.
Yeah, unplanned. You know, the void of potential.
Yeah.
You know, what will happen? What will we paint? I don't know, but I'm stoked that I could hit you up and be like, yo, Klone, want to meet me out in the middle of Europe and see if we paint something there? And you're like, hell yeah, let's go. That's fun. And that's what I was talking about, having an abundant mindset.
Yeah.
Most people, even if they could afford it, be like, oh, that'd be great, but like, no, I should, you know, be careful and strategic, and maybe I won't allow myself to go out there. But sometimes when you go out there and you just shine artistically, then more blessings are attracted into your reality.
Yeah, I mean, it's also kind of hard because I'm from a very, you know, working class background. You know, I'm not used to having an abundance of life and, you know, being able to just do what I want. And I've always relied on, you know, my work and stuff back in the past when I lived in England. So, you know, I feel like I've been quite successful in recent years and be able to do what I want. It's almost hard to choose what you want to do, you know? It's like, what do you do? Yeah. I still want to live that kind of lifestyle, just what I was before, you know, still just want to paint, still just want to
Take it day
create
by
and do
day. It
stuff.
doesn't
Yeah,
seem
yeah,
like
yeah.
you have some grand plan of world taking over and
No.
being number one. You just want to be
I just
you.
want to be me.
You
Yeah.
want to do your thing.
Yeah, yeah.
You're content with that.
Yeah.
Just vibing,
Yeah, yeah.
exploring.
Spreading love and joy and helping and just painting and networking with people. It's great.
As an artist, do you feel we do anything to make the world a better place with the things that we do, or?
Oh, now that's a question. Yeah, I feel like the street art world is a great painting walls in communities is it's something else. Like you paint a wall, for example, in the center of New York, people walk by like constantly. They don't even blink. They see it all the time. You go to somewhere like Kingston, Jamaica, or to Pueblo in Akumal or something where they've never seen that before, and you're putting it up, and it just wows, and you can just see the inspiration just taking over the community. That it just like, wow, I didn't even know this was a thing. Like, wow,
What is
they're
this
just
thing?
amazed
What does
by
it
It's like, and it
mean?
opens conversation, and they're just like, you get a lot of kids like, how can I do that? It's like, well, here's a pen, here's some paper, draw. That's how you start. This is the basics of it, Like
You can do this too.
you can do it too. Everyone can do it.
Uh-huh.
It's got to put your mind to it. I'm not really a big believer in, people come and they say, "Oh, you were born with such a talent." I don't believe in that at all.
No.
I put in a lot of hours into doing what I'm doing, as did you, as did every artist out there. We might have been born with a inspiration to lean that way, passion to do it,
drive,
and interest, and the products of our surroundings have led us to this point to do that. There's a lot of factors, but to be born with the talent.
No, it's as if people think that people are born with the ability to talk words. You have to learn your words,
exactly. Yeah.
a pronunciation, etc. That's the same with art.
It's just it's the same with everything. People say, "I wish I could do that." You can do that. You just have to choose to want to do that.
What's cool about art is like we're learning how to talk with images, but we all make up our own language. Like your language of Klone is so different from the language of Chris Dyer, but we can talk and we can feel out what's the vibration or the general energy of what you're trying to say with it.
Yeah.
Because of the tone. Like say I feel positivity through your art. But your language and my language are totally different.
Right, yeah.
But they can be next to each other and still sing the same song in harmony.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, totally. Well, so happy to have you in town. I'm so happy to be your neighbor and friend. And thank you for doing this interview with us in your brand new studio. I'm proud of you. And
Yeah, thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah.
Wicked.
It's my pleasure. Yeah. And thank you guys for watching another episode of Chris Dyer's Creative Friends. If you're still here, make sure to smash that like button. I don't know why you gotta smash it. Press it gently. You don't want to break your phone and stuff. But, comment what touched you about this conversation. Share it with a friend who's an artist who would like to, learn more about Klone. And I'll see you next time. Blessings. Thank you so much, man.
Yeah, man.
Yo! Next episode, Carlos Pons.
We want to create, we're curious. We want to experience, you know what I mean? More so than other living things that we know. And I think all things are living in a macro level, But I think what makes us human is that desire. There's opportunity everywhere. And every time a door closes, it's a wonderful thing because now there's like limitless opportunities doing anything else. You know what I mean? It also feels like there's no excuse not to do my art. Sometimes I can't sleep at night because I'm like, what are you doing? Like you're literally in a place right now where you should be making your art. Like get up and do what you're supposed to be doing. So there's that perspective, of you come from a place where things feel a little bit like there's less resources and you're now in a place where there are resources.
Abundance.
Yeah, like, okay, well then get your ass up and do shit about it, Make a decision. Are you gonna do it or you're not gonna do it? If you're gonna do it, just do it. And dive in and don't look back. Try to find somebody who's gonna be critical of your art.
Yeah.
Try to find someone who's gonna tell you when your shit's whack.
Yeah.
I think that's really important.
So please make sure to subscribe, like, comment, and share. Big thanks, and see you next episode. Peace.